Singapore has been one of the fastest developing countries in the world. From nothing, we managed to be one of the richest countries in Southeast Asia, in just 50 years. So, what will be of Singapore in 2025? Let's look into the political component of Singapore. In regards to our political stability, for the past 50 years in Singapore, the PAP has led Singapore to its success, by running as government. PAP has always maintained the majority of at least 60% of the votes. Furthermore, in the recent general elections 2015, PAP managed to win back seats they have lost previously and attained a total of close to 70% of the total votes. Therefore, in the year 2025, it is likely that PAP will continue to lead Singapore as its government, as they are a party which have already proven themselves over the past 5 decades. Hence, Singapore's political stability will remain, unless a significant event occur, such as corruption or a massive incapability of the members of PAP, which is very unlikely, as Singapore has been consistently rated as the most transparent government in Asia by Transparency International, based in Berlin. In regards to the capabilities of PAP, it will always be of standard due to the high salary which attracts skilled professionals. As our founding father Mr. Lee has said, low salaries will draw in the hypocrites who sweet talk their way into power in the name of public services, but once in charge will show their true color, and ruin the country. Furthermore, there will be an increase in opposition parties despite PAP's experience and superiority. In recent years, there has been a rise in political parties and contenders, and this will continue to increase even in 2025. The issue of having no minimum wage scheme has been ongoing in Singapore for quite a while. However, it is likely that this will carry on up till 2025, as the government views the workfare scheme to be better than a minimum wage scheme. Lastly, with the uprising influence of ISIS, security and defenses against external threats cannot be compromised and will not be compromised even in 2025. It can be expected that Singapore's defense budget will continue to increase from the current $9.5 billion.
Whoever governs Singapore must have that iron in him, or give it up. This is not a game of cards. This is your life and mine. I've spent a whole lifetime building this. And as long as I'm in charge, nobody's going to knock it down.
Moving on to the economical component of Singapore. The inflation rate of the economy will affect the way companies price their products and services, which will affect the consumer's purchasing power and demand. Tax changes will directly affect economic growth. Lower income earners will mostly be affected by the GST, whereas for the higher income earners will mostly be affected by the individual income tax. Taxation is a way to finance the government and also to contribute to the nation's buildings, which includes individual income tax, corporate tax, import tax, GST, consumer tax, etc. A well-designed tax policy has the ability to raise the economic growth, but there will be obstacles from time to time and no assurance that will boost the economy performance. Looking into the tourism sector of Singapore's economy, the direct contribution of travel and tourism to GDP in 2014 was 18.8 billion, equivalent to 4.9% of Singapore's GDP. This is forecast to rise by 3.7% to 19.5 billion in 2015. This primarily reflects the economic activity generated by industries such as hotels, travel agents, airlines, and other passenger transportation services, excluding commuter services. The direct contribution of travel and tourism to GDP is expected to grow by 2.4% to 24.7 billion by 2025. With the increase in tourism industry in 2025, more jobs will be created, therefore unemployment rate will decline. In regards to Singapore's social concerns in 2025, labor replacement might be a potential issue, as the increasing reliance on automation such as robotics will lead to a significant replacement on blue-collar workers. The skilled sector will see a rise in unemployment rate for these workers. Also, with the rise in global population and with no agricultural sector to support the country, the continual reliance on food imports will drive prices up as demand increases with the rise in local population. This adds financial burden to the lower income strata and will lead to very limited resources left available. So, what about the technological advancements in Singapore in 2025? Technology and its advances has always been one of the main focuses in Singapore. In recent years, the reliance of technology worldwide has been on the increasing trend, and the application of technology has now become a part and parcel of a day-to-day activity. Singapore, being one of the countries classified under a newly industrialized country, owed a huge part of its success to the technological advancements, increasing advantages towards the sectors like manufacturing, import-export, and allowed plenty of flexibilities, gaining market access at ease compared to many other countries. Advancements such as 3D printing technology will significantly improve everyone's lives. In 2025, benefits in terms of like medical cures and assistance will be readily available. 3D bioprinting will be conveniently be able to customize and reproduce human organs and tissues, therefore, even the most critical illness, diseases, and disabilities can be fixed and cured in the shortest time frame. Furthermore, any product can be easily reproduced and manufactured with this technology, hence providing more possibilities and opportunities in the business sectors in Singapore such as production of automobiles and machinery parts. With this technology trend in the future, the cost of customization and mass production will be minimized while maximizing the profits and efficiency at the same time. Another technology that has been developing in the recent years is the usage for near-field communication, NFC. The capability of this technology allows devices to transmit and communicate with each other within distance of typically 10 centimeters or less, allowing users advantages like contactless transactions, sharing of business cards paperless and easier connections. In 2025, many of our mainstream items like keys for locks will be typically replaced by the identification through our fingerprints using the implementation of NFC. All sorts of cards will be redundant as well since name cards can be exchanged through the data exchange via NFC, and credit cards are useless as payments can also be made using NFC. The functions of day-to-day life will not be compromised while minimizing the redundancy of the reliance of multiple products to perform tasks that with assistance of technology. Among all these technological advancements, one crucial lifestyle change in 2025 will be driverless automobiles. Automobiles will be solely relying on GPS technology, cameras, and brand new mechanics instead of drivers to travel on the road. This implementation will reduce the number of accidents on the road, provide passengers the luxury to do their own work while traveling, and increase the capacity of parking spaces with specific parking sensors. How about the environment in 2025? Air pollution will always be a concern in Singapore even after 10 years due to air pollutants such as toxic emission from industrial processes and construction sites. In 2025, we can see an increase in usage of electrical vehicles due to advancement in technology. Frequent haze and smoke from Indonesia have always caused health hazards to Singapore. However, precautionary measures have always been in place for Singapore. During haze seasons, Ministry of Health activates the haze subsidy scheme to provide affordable treatments for lower and middle income family, children, and elderly with haze-related conditions. This scheme is available at all polyclinic and public health preparedness clinics. In 2025, could see advancements in medication and safety measures to manage the situation in Singapore. There will also be alternative ways to prevent or reduce carbon emission. Also, due to the increasing population in Singapore and the high demand for urbanization, there has been massive deforestation taking place in Singapore. The government came up with Plant a Tree program to encourage Singaporeans and business entities in Singapore to promote greening in our city. However, even with this program, it will not be able to combat the problem of deforestation. Singapore has been trying to reclaim land to meet the need for space in Singapore. In 10 years, we can see an increase in Singaporeans purchasing housing in Johor Bahru, Malaysia, and traveling down to Singapore for a living due to increasing cost in housing in Singapore and urbanization of Malaysia. Lastly, Singapore has been trying to be self-sufficient by building retention reservoirs, reclamation of seawater and desalination plants known as new water. Almost 70% of Singapore water is recycled and the remainder is discharged into the sea. The demand for water increases as we see a hike in population growth. In another 10 years, we can see a development in technology to combat these issues by inventing ways to reuse water and even treat it in a cost-effective way so as to provide for the increasing population. Last but not least, legislation in Singapore 2025. With a constantly rising population, including foreign talents, there has to be certain laws, regulations, and criteria that would be different in 2025 as compared to now. One of it will be the criteria to become a PR, permanent resident, in Singapore. The current criteria are that the applicant has to be either a spouse or children of a Singapore citizen, or if the applicant is holding an employment pass or is an S-pass holder. For Singapore to be able to reach the projected number of population in Singapore, the criteria may need to be even more relaxed in order for more people to be eligible to apply to become a Singapore PR. Population increase may also cause more conflict between the people living in Singapore. As Singapore is a multiracial country, there are bound to be conflicts between different races in Singapore. As there are many races and people of other nationalities living in Singapore, there would also be different cultures that people are accustomed to. With the different cultures, if the residents are not understanding of each other's cultures, there would be conflicts. For example, the Little India riot, which happened in 2013, where the cause of the riot was when a foreign worker was knocked down by a bus. One of the foreign workers was interviewed and mentioned that if this were to happen in India, people will get angry and riot will happen. This incident resulted in the new bill that sales of alcohol are prohibited from 10:30 p.m. to 7 a.m. Therefore, with more people in the country by 2025, there are bound to be more laws and regulations in order to maintain the order in Singapore. With the increased population in Singapore, it will also lead to housing problems. There might be more demand for public housing in Singapore, and the eligibility of people being able to receive grant from government should be stricter than currently. Similarly, if the demand are not high, as people might turn to buying private properties, owning a HDB flat in Singapore should become easier for citizens with rules that are not as strict and rigid as compared to currently. Also, for the property price could also be higher, or lower, depending on the demand for housing in 2025. Another factor would be that e-commerce has been growing very rapidly all over the world, including Singapore. With more and more e-commerce sites being set up, there are to be certain laws binding to it, to protect both sellers and buyers. Right now, there is already legislation and rules that apply to e-commerce, and examples are Sale of Goods Act, which applies to buyers, and the Second-Hand Dealers Act, which applies to the sellers. In 2025, it is expected that there will be even more e-commerce sites around, and people would be more inclined to online shopping due to the convenience that it brings. Therefore, there should be more laws and regulations in order to make sure that both the sellers and buyers are well protected on the platform.